Hey everybody, and welcome back from another video. In today's video, we are talking about the new movie Honey Don't. This is a brand new movie starring Margaret Qualley and Aubrey Plaza, and also Chris Evans. But the two uh, big partner in crimes are Margaret's character Honey and Aubrey Plaza's character MG Falcone. Uh, and so we're gonna talk to you about the movie with non-spoilers first, give the movie a rating, and then talk about some spoilers about the film. So first things first, I want to say that I was very excited for this movie. I have been growing to be more and more of a fan of Margaret Qualley's type of films. She's a very, very different kind of actress. I feel like if Pauly Shore was in the news lately, he'd probably say she has a lot of charisma. She's different, and so I think her movies are kind of going that way too, where they're a little different. Like I could very easily seeing this being like a Sundance film, and maybe it was, and I'm just not aware of it. But I was very excited to see it. The trailer, all I really saw that got my attention was that Margaret was in it, Aubrey was in it, Chris Evans was in it. It seemed like there was a crazy plot about, who done it with some different murders that are going on. And so I was like, all right, I'm in between all that. And after seeing the movie, I will say it kind of has like what's that called? Baby Dolls. What is that movie that we saw with Margaret in it?
Oh, driveway dolls.
Driveway Dolls. Um, it has a very, very similar vibe to that movie, and I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole because that would give away some spoilers, but needless to say, it's kind of like, from the trailer, you think you're getting one thing, but really you're getting a little bit of a something else here. Um, and I thought that was kind of interesting with a handful of the choices they made. I will say the movie is very sexual. I was not anticipating that, but there is a lot of sexual scenes in this movie and fairly graphic. Um,
They do show a couple things in the trailer. I don't remember watching the trailer before watching this film. So I was kind of going into it blind a little bit just because I didn't really know what the movie was about. And I don't know, for me it was just kind of like a fresh take of I almost didn't want to see the trailer just because, so often trailers are misleading and I don't know, I just thought it'd be something different to try out a movie without seeing it. But before doing this review, I did go ahead and watch the trailer. That way I could kind of know what was, grounds for spoilers versus not. And like they do show a lot of what Chris Evans' character is like. It's very different than what I'm used to seeing him in as far as role types. I'm used to seeing him as Captain America and that kind of character. This is complete and total opposite. But they do
Character with
show him
some
in bed.
respect.
Huh?
I said a character with some respect.
Yeah, they do show him doing some of his preaching. They show him in bed with some risque partners. Yes, partners plural. It's very scandalous outfits, and we see a little bit of I think it's Aubrey Plaza's character in bed also, not with who, doesn't show who she's with, but it shows that she's in bed. So they do give you a little bit of a flavor of like there's gonna be some decent sexual content in here.
I don't remember much from the trailer. I just remember seeing the actors and actresses and thinking it seemed like a somewhat interesting story. So that's what pulled me in. But what I will say, because I did that with like what you said, how you didn't really remember the trailer and then you went into it blind. I did that with Weapons, and Weapons was a very, very pleasant surprise. I will say this movie, it it wasn't it wasn't bad. But I felt like the movie was trying to do a handful of different things, and some of the things that they were trying to accomplish with different subplots kind of got lost in the mix. And so between trying to latch onto one and figure out what's going on with it, by the time they get to the next one, there's times where I missed information for the next one. So then I was kind of lagging behind, and then, by the time we get to the end, I feel like I don't really know what happened in the movie because again, this is kind of a who done it, what's really going on here type situation. Not like Scream per se, where like there's one person going around murdering a bunch of people. Like we know from the synopsis of the movie that there's murders going on and there's a weird church that seems to be the cause of all this. So we kind of know going into it that oh there might be something going on with this church. That's all these people are dying. But then, as the story goes on, you start to figure out more and more stuff. Um, but I will say, for me, trying to think about what I was told about the movie in the beginning, that was kind of distracting because really what was going on was something completely different. So, and the movie tries to subvert, what's really happening with some of the murders that are happening in the film that are the fault of the church. But what the main character, Honey, is trying to figure out is actually not necessarily 100% connected to the church. And so I think that's kind of a distract. It's supposed to be distracting for the detective, but it's also distracting as a viewer. I don't know if you felt that way.
I'm a little lost just in what you're saying, even to be totally honest. I feel like the point is just to mislead you constantly because that's the journey that she's going through as a PI.
That's basically what I'm saying. The 3 second version of it, I suppose.
Um, I do think it's interesting, not maybe not interesting, but just a good key tell here is that they do give you a flavor of the very dry humor in the trailer. Her saying that she loves drinking, but she's dry on Tuesdays, or you haven't even seen the riddle on my butt. Like those lines were both in the trailer. So if you're into that kind of very dry humor and very dry delivery, there's quite a bit of those types of one-liners throughout this film. So I thought the humor aspect was pretty good. I feel like this movie does a really good job of keeping you on your toes and more or less just kind of wondering of like what else could they possibly do next, because even in the trailer there's so many different things that are shocking, between like those different one-liners or seeing Chris Evans, in bed with multiple partners. That's obviously something that's not very typical for his the characters that he would portray. There's a lot of things that make you really scratch your head and go, did I just see that? Like, is that really what just happened? Is that what they just said? And um, I don't know. I feel like that's the one thing that this movie does really well is just constantly making you think, wait, what?
I will agree with that, but I will also say there was a couple of those kind of jokes that happened in the beginning of the film where the theater seemed to laugh quite a bit at, but as it progressively went throughout the film, I felt like there was a lot less laughs. Like they had some pretty good jokes in the beginning, and then, as you went, it kind of died off in our theater. At least that's what I noticed. Because I was like, there's a couple of jokes where I thought that's kind of funny, but nobody's laughing, so maybe it wasn't that funny. At least not like they were at the beginning of the movie.
Maybe it just wasn't as much of a surprise for them anymore because they knew to expect the unexpected.
Could be. What would you give the movie out of 10?
Okay, so I talked a lot about what this movie does good. I didn't really talk a lot about what this movie does bad, and I think it really ties into kind of what Jeremy was saying about the different misleading things, is that it's almost confusing. And I feel like we kind of rushed to a conclusion very quickly towards the end without a ton of explanation about what was going on. Is that kind of what you were insinuating earlier?
To a point. I'm gonna say it right away when we get into spoilers. So,
Okay. So yeah, trying to leave it vague on purpose because we're in the non-spoiler section here, but that was one of my downsides. I also we didn't even mention this. Charlie Day is in this film. he doesn't have a super big character plot or anything. He's just kind of like a side story character.
He's just kind of a pervy
But
cop.
I didn't realize how much I really don't like him, but his voice just gets to me. It's so annoying. Which is such a super small thing. 'Cause again, he's not a big character in this movie. Aubrey Plaza's character, I also didn't really like hers either. I felt like her character was almost forced. Like it wasn't it didn't come off very natural for the acting, which is sad because I really like her as an actress, but I just wasn't a fan of her in this film. Um, all of that being said, I think I'm at like a five. There's not enough bad things to deter me to say that this is like a bad movie, but there's not really enough good things for me to say this is a really good movie, and so I'm landing right kind of in the middle at an average film of a five.
I was sitting at a 5 too. Coming out of the theater, I was kind of wondering, am I at a 5 or a 6? But at the same time, I'm just like, that one was a pretty average film. I wanted it to be better. I wanted to give it a higher score because I was very excited to go see it. But like I said, there was a lot of times where the movie it was super distracting for me. The part about the trying to you know uh, make things seem disoriented just because, that's kind of what she was going through. But to a point, I think it was a little too much, just because I couldn't focus on every single piece. And I really wanted to be invested in the movie. Like I said, there's a lot of movies like this that have come out where I thought they were like the one movie that comes to mind also, instead of Drive Away Dolls was Love Lies Bleeding. It kind of reminds me of that feel to a film, but I feel like that movie did a way better job at having enough focus where, we don't have to question so much and try to keep up with different things. I feel like the flow was better with Love Lies Bleeding, whereas like this one, it was a bit distracting.
I still don't even know, and we're not going to answer the question here. We'll wait till spoilers to really discuss it, but I still don't even really know what the purpose of the church is, right? Like, it's obvious that there's something going on at the church that's not normal, but is it, him talking about his followers and like, is it like a cash grab? Is it a drug scheme? Is it something else, something sexual related? Like, there's just so many different things that this church I don't even understand the church's identity.
We'll get to that immediately in the spoilers because that's what I'm going to talk about. So let's transition to spoilers.
All right.
All right, so again, going back to the synopsis of the film, where it says it's a dark comedy and there's these murders happening and there's a fishy church going on, right? There's something weird. And we open the film with the first character dying. I think her name is Mia. And the our detective character Honey goes to investigate it, and she sees the girl and she's investigating all these different, well, she's a private detective. She's trying to figure out all these different things, of course, but where are the connections? And the connections between the synopsis and what's happening is that, well, Honey thinks that one thing is going on, and Mia is connected to the church. And so that's what makes Mia think that there might be something going on with the church. And because the church knows that Mia, went to their church and they're trying to sell drugs and stuff, they know that there's going to be some attention that is going to be focused on this church. And so what the church ends up doing is saying, well, there's going to be a lot of eyes on us, and we need to make sure that there's as least amount of eyes on us as possible. And so, like, there's an instance where one of their employees goes to do a drop, and the guy goes to sell the drugs, and the guy that wants to buy the drugs is saying, "I don't have the money, just give it to me." And then, an altercation occurs where the buyer gets killed, and so now there's more attention on what's going on. So then the church says, okay, well, now we got to kill the guy that just did that because we need him to have his mouth shut. And so there's a lot of murders that are happening within the church that seem like they may be somewhat playing a role in this thing with Mia. But what ends up happening is later on we find out that this character, because I'm jumping right to the end of the spoilers, but what we find out is that um, MG, Aubrey's character, she is a victim of fatherly abuse, and we learn at the very end of the film that she murdered her dad, even though she tells Honey at one point that her dad just died overseas. But what we also find out at the tail end of the movie is that Mia, the girl in the very beginning, that, the church is thinking that there's going to be unwanted attention given to her, she was dead before she got in the car. Like, she was a dead body in the car. And what they found is that she had stab wounds. And so Mia and a couple of other random homicides that they talk about at the tail end of the movie, like they literally like sneak this stuff or shoehorn it right at the end, is that MG was the one that was the problem this whole time. Like she's the one that was responsible for the killing in the very beginning. But because of the church being shisty and not wanting as many eyes on them as what this girl that was killed may bring, because of their murders, that's what causes all this disorientation for not only Honey, but us as the audience. I know that's a lot, but that's
I
what you're supposed to keep track of when you're watching the film.
That's the gist of it, yeah. Um, I didn't quite piece one and two together about the church's murders being distracting from MG's murders and kind of mixing those up, but I think you hit the nail right on the head there of those two instances happening at the same time of like them both murdering people and how that's confusing of like, well, who's actually doing what?
Well, there was even like different things that were happening like just because that seemed to be distracted. So, like for instance, there's this like woman bounty hunter. I don't know exactly what her role is, but her name is Cher, and she like goes up to the car that was crashed and she takes a ring from Mia, and it looks like the symbol from the church,
Mhm.
and she brings it back to even Chris Evans' character. And so it's like, oh, well, is there like targeted murders happening here as well from the church? Like there's so many different things going on in this one area where there's so many people murdering other people that it's just a big spider web of confusion. Because I remember when we got to the end and I I think you and I were talking and I had mentioned why I think Aubrey's character was the one that was responsible for the murder this whole time. And, you and I kind of went back and forth of like, no, not, I don't know about that. And, you know, it was, it was confusing. But again, like I said, you know, they tried to just, it was like an exposition dump in the last 2 minutes of the film to explain all that. And I feel like we should have understood that a bit more along the way, but, it is what it is.
Well, and the film's only an hour 29, so it's not like we're really pressed for time. We could have had, an extra 10 minutes to kind of piece some of this out just a little bit more. Just a little bit.
Yeah, and that was another thing I guess I could have talked about that in non-spoiler is that there's also some subplots here where like we talked about how uh Honey's character and MG, they're kind of, getting closer and closer together, but they bond really over their crappy fathers, right? And so there's even a subplot in this film where Honey is dealing kind of with her past with her dad, and with this movie only being an hour and a half, there isn't a lot of room for messing around. And I feel like that was a subplot where we needed more time. We needed more time to do some character development. I did pick up, like when we were watching the film, the way that the dad is introduced is that he appears to be just like this homeless guy that is stalking Honey's niece at
Yep.
her job site. She works at a hot dog joint. And she goes to leave from her job at night and she sees this, what she thinks, homeless guy at the bus stop, and she doesn't want to approach him because she thinks he's stalking her. And then he stands up and it looks like he's gonna get on the bus, but he doesn't. And he looks at her and he says, "I love you." And to her, it seems like this is a creepy homeless guy that is just hitting on me. And so she runs for her life. Well, the thing is like right before this scene, Margaret, or not Margaret, Honey, Margaret's her real name. Honey was talking about, her abusive dad and stuff. And so I feel like you could piece that along the way. Like I suspected he was, the grandpa. I feel like what the movie was trying to do was to insinuate it was just another creepy guy and there's going to be a nasty, pervy, or perverted, I should say, instance here between a homeless guy and a teenager. But I'm very happy that they didn't go that route because that would have been really weird, aside from the other weird things that happen in this movie.
Yeah, I didn't piece together that it was the grandpa or Honey's dad until much later when we saw him confront Honey and do the same "I love you" line that was just super weird. Um, they mentioned one of the reasons why Honey talked to MG later about her missing niece is because they would have been at the bus stop at the same time, or at least on that like same street. Not saying that MG takes the bus, but like that they would have been crossing paths. And I wish we could have seen that. Like I wish I would have
Hmm.
seen MG just in the background of the shot or something to show like so that I had an understanding of her being there because we didn't see her at all that I recognized.
Yeah, I do think it would have been a better approach to do the filming tactic where the audience knows what's going on, but the people in the movie don't. Like you said, if we had seen her kind of in the background of the shot, and then we're like, oh, she does know something, but she's telling Honey that she doesn't know something. Like, what is up with this character? I think that would have been way more effective than just Honey showing up at MG's house, and then MG is just like, "Yeah, I kidnapped her, and this knife is my dad's, and I'm gonna kill you." Like it didn't flow nicely for the reveal. I think that they were hoping for and the impact they were hoping for, it just wasn't quite there.
Yep, I'm right there with you.
I also think a lot of like my guess with all the different like very sexual scenes with Chris Evans' character and how he's getting with all these different people that come to the church, I feel like they tried to have that be a very comedic thing. And I even remember years ago, um, the movie, what's it called? A Million Ways to Die in the West or something. It was a Liam Neeson movie where one of the iconic scenes from the trailer was that the guy was like, "Don't shoot me on sex night." Like I was waiting for that to happen, but they had like their own derivative of that joke. I forget what Chris Evans called it, but he was like, I think it started with a C. But I don't know what it was. I feel like it was a certain church day, but
I didn't quite catch that other than, you're interrupting my time in the bedroom to tell me that somebody's dead. You think they're gonna stay dead, right? So why couldn't you just wait till we were done to tell me that they're dead?
yeah, that was one of them. But yeah, they had so many scenes of this priest character doing all this stuff. I feel like it was supposed to be for a comedic effect, but by the second or third one, it's like, all right, I guess we're doing this again.
And that might have been why you noticed the audience not laughing as much, is because maybe it was the joke played out too many times.
Could have been. But there's the rule of three, I suppose. You got to do those jokes three times in a row. Let's see, what else is in this movie? We talked a little bit about what's that one guy you said you don't really care for?
Charlie Day.
So Charlie Day's character, he's an officer. Let's see, what was the officer's name? Marty. So Marty is an actual like cop, whereas Honey is a private investigator. Um, and so Marty's role in this movie is kind of like Honey's insider. They seem to have like a somewhat flirty relationship, like a hard to get type thing, but she's a lesbian, so she has no interest in guys. So she even repeatedly says this to him throughout the film, like, I'm not into guys, I'm into girls. And, he just keeps on trying to, get more and more closer to her. Like, there's even a thing where she wants to ask information to him, and he's like, okay, give me your number. And she's like, I'll call you from a payphone. Like, he's doing his absolute hardest to um, have more of a friendship with her, but I think that must be his comedic side of this film is just the cat and mouse situation between the two of them.
Yeah, well, he even catches her in a lie about the payphone too, because she at one point says she doesn't use payphones. He's like, "Aha! Because you told me that you can't call me or I can't have your cell number because you use payphones, and now you're saying you don't use payphones. Like I caught you."
Yeah, interesting stuff. Let's see. I mean, there is a small subplot. We talked about how MG is connected to uh, the girl in the beginning, but also we talked a little bit about, Honey's niece. We didn't really talk a lot about some of the other stuff that was going on with her. Like why did MG get connected to her? And that was after Honey and MG had a fun night together. They wake up the next morning and is it Corinne is her name?
Yep.
Corinne comes in, she's the niece, and she's looking for her aunt, Honey, because she went out with her boyfriend, Corinne did, and he beat her. And so she wants Honey to like take care of her face so that when she goes home, her mom doesn't question anything about it. And so Honey agrees to this and kind of pushes it under the rug, but MG being part of the police force, she's not too keen about that. And it also plays into her character a little later on when we learn about, how she's upset about her dad being abusive or just men being abusive in general in relationships. And so I think that kind of stoked the fire of why she was like kidnapping Corinne. I don't entirely understand all that.
I think it's that Corinne didn't want to press any charges because her boyfriend's still a good guy. He just got carried away. It's not his fault, whatever, because she still likes him. And so MG sees that as you are choosing to be a victim because you're not recognizing that like this guy's a jerk and you need to stay away from him. You are defending his really bad actions when you shouldn't be. And so if you want to choose to be a victim, I'll show you what it's like to be a victim. And so that's why she, you know, kidnaps her and I think would have eventually killed her, if she had more time with her. And that's probably, I think, why she was killing some of these other people too, because they talked about how she was killing um, prostitutes for
Yep.
basically the same reason.
Yeah, because that's the couple homicides that I mentioned that they just kind of threw in at the end of the film of, oh, well, she was responsible for not only the girl in the very beginning, but a couple of other prostitutes as well. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, I think that's the basics of the film.
I
Is there
would say so, yeah.
any
There's a
other?
lot of other little subplots here or there that, just add to the comedic effect or um, you know, you see like
Yeah,
when
like
like when
the I was gonna say like the guy in the very beginning that came to her saying that my significant other is cheating on me. Can you see if he's what he's doing? And turns out that guy is the one that was trying to buy the drugs and then got killed.
okay. I didn't know which one of the murders he was other than just the fact that the guy's boyfriend got murdered.
Yeah, he was the one that got ran over and then got stuck in the tire and then yeah,
Makes
all
sense.
all that stuff. Even the violence was kind of comedic.
In a way, yeah. Yep.
I partially interrupted you, so what were you trying to say?
I was just gonna say, like when Honey goes to visit Corinne's boyfriend to kind of scare him when she's not sure where Corinne is, and maybe she did go back to her boyfriend even though she promised she wouldn't. So she's just beating the crap out of him and trying to destroy his guns so that he doesn't have guns, and um, I don't know. It's just a lot of that type of humor of like, I'm just gonna beat you up because you deserve it, and I'm gonna smash your stuff, and just I don't know, taking it one extra step further than what maybe a normal person might do.
Yeah,
Maybe that
well,
is what a normal person would do. I don't know.
well, she smashed his gun, and then as she was leaving, she smashed his rear or his side mirrors too on his car.
Yep.
See, what I thought she was doing, like my immediate reaction to what she was doing with that scene, and clearly it wouldn't have went anywhere, but who knows? She has the gun and she's hitting it on the cinder block that's holding up his mobile home. And so I had thought, well, what if one of the cinder blocks came out and his house got trashed?
I was waiting for that.
But I feel like there's so much weight on those cinder blocks that there's no way that would happen.
Yeah. I
So,
don't think I don't think she's tough enough to smash those cinder blocks, and you would have needed like at least a sledgehammer, not just a gun.
right. I don't think anybody's really tough enough to take a shotgun and smack a cinder block like that.
Yeah.
It's not the gun itself would not be sturdy enough to take care of that. Like you said, though, a
Right.
sledgehammer, maybe. But that is our discussion on Honey Don't. So again, I was really excited for it, but it came up a little bit short for me. Um, we both gave it a 5, average film. I would say check it out if it comes to streaming.
I still don't even understand the title. Like I understand that's Honey's name, but why is it Honey Don't?
My
Don't what?
guess is because she was meddling more and more. I don't know. I could give you a Google answer, but that's about it. And for those of you that don't know what that means whenever Sarah asks me a question, I give her whatever answer comes to mind first. All right. Well, that was our talk on Honey Don't. If you enjoy this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Drop us a like if you liked the video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on Honey Don't. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.